Welcome to Buzzing with Cousin Talk. I'm your host, Cousin Johnny. How's everybody doing out there? Looks like we got a little rain the other day, or yesterday, in fact. That's great. And I got a great show planned. I got a great guest. But before I start, I'd like to shout out to all the volunteers in this beautiful community we live in. All the volunteers that are out working at different organizations, helping people out, and we hats off to you guys. And I'm just reminding everybody the holidays are coming up, and if you want to go out, if you have time, go out and volunteer, ring a bell, donate a turkey. I mean, whatever. Let's help everybody out in this community. Okay, so let's get this show going. I got a special guest here. He's a musician, songwriter, and he's also a river guide. So please welcome you. You've seen him around town, Kyle Kovalick. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, cousin. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm great, thanks,
Great.
man.
I'm glad to have you on. And Kyle, a lot of people have seen you around playing music, and you've got a lot of stories. I thought I'd bring you on. So where'd you grow up? And
I actually grew up in Pacific Grove, where I live now. Mostly moved here, in between first and second grade. So started second grade at a little lighthouse school, which is now the school in Pacific Grove. Graduated from PG High School in 1975. Promptly moved away, and then, family here, and so it's been part of my life, my whole life. And I finally moved back full time in 2015.
So we're glad you did.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So I've heard you play that guitar, and you're really sounds great.
Oh, thanks.
When did you pick up the guitar?
As early as I can remember, I think we were watching Ed Sullivan show or something. Someone was playing guitar. I definitely remember the Beatles and picking up a broomstick, pretending I was a guitar player. And my parents used to listen to Kingston Trio. They loved music, and so they'd play the stereo all the time. All kinds of fun music, and they weren't rock and rollers per se, but as I was a little later. But so just playing the guitar forever, all my life is since I was pretty short.
I remember growing up, I was into that. Kind of still am, but you don't see it as often as the folk music,
right?
The Kingston Trio,
Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley,
the New Seekers, and
right, all that stuff. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, great. Now, you play with Richard Bryant, right? You guys are called, you're a duo, and you call yourselves Two Rivers. And,
correct. We actually started that right when I was moving back. Well, a little story of how I got connected with Richard. I grew up, I went to high school. I'm a couple years older than him, but I'm sure most of your viewers know Mike Lent. Phenomenal guitar player.
Oh man, that's one of the Monterey's favorites, right?
Yeah. So Mike was a freshman when I was a junior in high school at PG High. He started there. He moved here from Maine, and we became fast friends. Bonded over the guitar, and we've been friends all our lives. There've been lots of periods where he traveled, still travels all over the place, and lots of periods where we didn't see each other for long periods of time. But we've always kept a connection. And about 10 years ago, I retired is the wrong word because you're supposed to have money when you retire, but I quit my professional career, and I was here taking care of my mom, who was at the end of her life. And Mike said, you really need to move back to Pacific Grove. And he was working a lot with Richard in Franklin Street Studios.
Okay, yeah.
And so Mike and I rented a little room together, and I was still living in Denver. I'd only been there. I lived there for about 5 years. And we had this little fledgling company called Studio B, and it never really went anywhere, but we had a lot of fun. And, Mike just tours so darn much. And I frankly didn't know what I was doing. But Richard was running Franklin Street Studio. So he and I became friends, and I was writing some songs, and I asked him to sing on some demos because, as you know, he's just got the voice. He's astounding. He's such a great singer.
I mean, I could listen to you guys all night long.
Oh, thanks.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, and Richard was kind enough to create this duo. We actually created it with another local who lives in Nashville now, Janny Littlepage. And she came up with the name Three Rivers. Okay. And then she left and moved back to Nashville where she lived before. And so we just called ourselves Two Rivers, and we were doing that. And then that eventually we added on, and we have a band called Five Star. And that band is Richard singing, myself on guitar. We've got Jesse DiCarlo on bass, Gary Machado on drums, and of course Bill Spencer on keyboards. And I'm pretty sure most of the people around here know all three of those guys. They are fantastic musicians, and I love it because I feel like the junior kid just following these experts around and learn every time we play. It's so much fun. So much fun for me. And I get to play electric guitar in that. When Richard and I are playing, it's an acoustic duo. So it's really fun. I get to play all this stuff. I do a lot of solo shows too, but great. I'm loving life. I got to tell you, it's really
That's great. Yeah, that's quite a lineup there. You got Five Star. Yeah,
it's great. I also got our dear friend Chuck Brewer. I do duos with Chuck and occasional trios with Chuck and Rod Wilson. And then they're kind enough to, Chuck's got a new band out there, and he's kind enough to, I should say they are kind enough to invite me in once in a while, sit in. Super fun. So I'm feeling very lucky indeed. Yeah.
The Chuck Brewer band. Yeah.
So, I'm not an official member, but I get to sit in with those guys a fair amount. So I just my musical palette is pretty full. And I just feel really lucky and blessed. So
that's really great. Also, speaking of Chuck Brewer, Chuck came out with the CD, and you helped him out with some vocals and guitar. And
I didn't do the vocals. I played I want to say the lion's share of the guitar parts on there, and I think Will Benson played a guitar solo on there as well. Will from the Eldorados, but I think I did most of the guitar work because I work with Richard. So Richard owns a studio.
Yeah,
he moved Franklin Street to Pacific Grove, and I'm sort of a minor part of that studio. You could call me his little junior partner, and I'm not a studio guy so much. I just sort of run around and plug in cables for Richard, who's a brilliant engineer and arranger and vocalist. And so he does this production work and engineering work for people like Chuck and lots of locals, musicians, and people from out of town too as well. We even have people from LA come up, and I think I'm handy, so Richard grabs me to do guitar parts, so I get to do a lot of that stuff. So big props to Richard for that. So Richard's all over that album. His imprint is on that album.
Yeah, that is really good. I mean,
and Chuck's great songwriter, super fun guy.
Yeah,
what a voice. So
Chuck and Richard, if you're watching this show, hello, and thanks a lot for what you guys do.
Yes, thank you guys, all of you guys, any of you musicians that I've been lucky enough to be around.
All the guys.
I've met in the last 5 years a lot of the local musicians. Ran into Linda Arcero in Big Sur yesterday, and just by happen chance, big hugs. And,
nice, yeah.
What a lovely woman, just an amazing person, great singer. So there's just so many out there.
That's a treat, yeah.
And they're great. There's just so many. I mean, we're really lucky around here. Got great music.
What I noticed was that, the pandemic was a negative thing. It's still fighting it. But I noticed a couple positive things came out because a lot of venues that never even thought about having music, all of a sudden now they got music.
Yeah. That was it was, I think, I hope and I think that music brings people together, and when you go, it takes the social pressure off of just having to go meet people somewhere because, hey, we're going to go listen to music. And, so you have this common thing and it's fun and you can socialize and listen to music. And just, it's fun and relaxed. And the pandemic, I don't want to say it was good to me. My partner, she's a nurse at SVMH.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, has she critical care nurse, and she spent a lot of time dealing with this pandemic. And,
Yeah.
But in some ways, it allowed me to I studied guitar years and years ago. I went to the Musicians Institute in Hollywood, which was called the Guitar Institute of Technology at the time.
Wow.
I was one of the very first students there. Luckily, I saw an article about it and went there. And college age, it was kind of a college-ish program at the time. Now it is a college, but at the time it wasn't accredited. And a great thing. And always wanted to be a professional musician, but then ended up, working for my folks and doing a bunch of other stuff. But where was I going with this? So I hadn't really taken a lot of lessons since then, because I got a degree in guitar performance way, way back, 40-some years ago, 79. And then during the pandemic, I wasn't playing very much at first. And then, as you noted, all of a sudden, I was getting a lot of gigs, but I started taking both vocal lessons and jazz guitar lessons. So I take vocal lessons from a really lovely young man named Justin Godoyne, who's a Pacific Grovian, and his uncle and I were in the same class at CPG High. His uncle passed away. He's a really sweet guy, Mark, and his older brother is Justin Stat. And also Gary Meek, and I think most of you know Gary, who's just saxophone, piano,
everything.
Mega talent, one of the most talented people on the planet. And he's been kind enough to adapt his teaching to me on guitar. And caveat, I am not a jazz guitar player. I never will be. Talk to Mike or Richard Papacheco or one of those guys, talk to Mike Glenn. Those are the jazz guys, but and Roger Eddy is a great guitar player for those that know him as a sax player. He's also a killer guitar player. But anyway, I'm not a jazz guitar player, but it's expanding my vocabulary. And so I take lessons from those guys on a regular level, and I'm very grateful to them too. So life is really good. So I got no complaints.
Beautiful. Those are two top-notch musicians.
Oh my gosh, they're they're just off the charts. So good.
And Roger, and I mean all over Monterey Peninsula.
Yeah, Roger's brother Glenn and I were a year apart. Roger's a little bit older than me, but we were a year apart at PG High. Roger's a PG kid as well, and we Roger had that band California when I was in high school. Oh
yeah, that was really.
To this day, I don't know why that band wasn't mega success. They were a local success for sure. They were by far my favorite band.
Probably one of the top bands in Monterey.
Oh my God! That's my memory, and that really watching. And Roger played saxophone and guitar in that band. And Roger's always just, I come and go from Monterey. There's years when I don't run into him. I have to send out a little prop to Roger. He is always, every time, really supportive. And so I have to give Roger thanks too. I just have nothing but thanks for all these people. They've been so good to me. So hugs and thanks to Roger.
This is, Kyle, a great community that we're here.
Yeah.
We're lucky to be in this beautiful spot with all these people. And
so many great people. And the people that promote it, like you, Johnny. Just amazing. There's so many people that are.
Everybody's helping each other out. And
Jacqueline, all these people that are out there. There's just tons of people. Kiki Wow when she was here. On all levels, and the clubs that have us and the wineries that have us. And I'm grateful to each and every one of them. I feel like this is a thanks session. Thank you. So hopefully I'm not boring the crap out of everybody.
No, and I'm going to say anybody out there we thank you for what you've done.
Oh yeah. The venues and the musicians and the audiences. It doesn't work without people watching. It's not the same. And so it's they're an equal part of it.
So Kyle, I was checking your bio, and I noticed it says you're a river guide. Is that that's actually what. Let me see if I can go back. Yes, I a part-time river guide now, and mostly for the last 30 years. But I was oddly enough, my parents started a rafting company when I was just going into high school. I was 13 years old in 8th grade, based out of Pacific Grove. Who knew you could do that? But you could. Yeah.
And so I didn't seek it out. It came to me, but how cool, right? And
Yeah.
so I became a river guide at 13. In fact, it was 50 years ago in September when I turned 14 that I took my first commercial customer down the river. You could never get away with that now. But in
Yeah.
1971, insurance,
Yeah.
and river running was really, really new. So I've been doing that all my life. And when I graduated from the music school in Hollywood, I ended up going to Seattle and playing a little bit up there just because I knew some people up there and it seemed like a good, city to go start. And then I got called back to run my parents' company, and that sort of squashed my music career. I was very young, I was 23, and I ended up running their operation in the Grand Canyon, which is why now, 40 years later, I'm a professional musician, so to speak. And but there was a lot of river running in between, and so yeah, really fun. It's great. It's a wonderful thing. If anyone hasn't done a river rafting trip, even a day trip is fun. The Grand Canyon trips are a bit longer, but
well, you do like the Grand Canyon like once a year, or
yeah, now I did it twice this year. You're only allowed to go on a private trip, which is a self-guided trip where you just get a bunch of friends and you go down once a year. And it's actually a lottery. It's hard to get on there, but I'm fortunate because I know a lot of people. So I don't go every year, but I try to go every year and have for decades. After I used to do, 8 or 10 trips a year as a guide working, for many, many years. But now once a year is good. This year I did 2 trips. I did a private and a commercial where I was working, and I just completed that one. So that was fun. Yeah, great stuff.
let me get a little quick photo here.
Uh-oh.
There it is.
Oh yeah, so those are some of the boats we're using. In fact, that's my son in the cowboy hat in the background. He's a river guide. He's 31 years old, third generation.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, the cowboy with his back to us, the cowboy bat, and a dear friend of ours, Brad Dimmick, who built that gorgeous dory that you see, the red and white blue dory.
Yeah.
And there's a huge history of dories in the Grand Canyon. And we were rowing rafts, and he was rowing his dory. And he's a wonderful man. Lives in Flagstaff, Arizona. I've known him for 45 years, I think. So we had a really fun trip just recently.
Are they like 10 feet or something? Or
no, it's the camera angle makes it a little weird. That particular dory is 15 feet. The raft next to it is 14. The one my son is standing on is 18. So the bigger one in the background is 18. We had 5 rafts and a dory. So
wow, that's really great.
Yeah.
Now you took this incredible trip just recently.
I did.
You spent 16 days floating.
Yes.
I guess in the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
Through 3,000 miles.
Well, let me correct that. 3,000 miles was the road trip I took.
Okay.
I did a 3,000-mile road trip. The Grand Canyon trip's 200 and some miles long.
Okay.
On the river, but yeah. So I apologize if that.
But you were on the road,
I was on the road for 32 days.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it was that 16-day trip with my son and my friends and my father's ashes. 16 days on the river, yeah.
How many people were?
We had, including the passengers, as I mentioned, this was a commercial trip, so there were 7 of us on the crew, and I think 17 passengers who had paid to come on the river from all over the place. Great people. It was a lovely trip. So 24 of us total for 16 days. You're camping out every night on the river. The guides are making the food. We make breakfast.
Wow.
We do a lunch buffet. We cook dinners.
That is great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of work. The guides work really hard. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but river guides work really hard, but it's incredibly rewarding, and you get to be in the Grand Canyon. I mean, from the bottom up, to see the Grand Canyon from the bottom up is not like.
Man, that is unbelievable. Also,
pretty incredible.
I'm sure you brought the guitar out at night.
Oh, we did, yeah. We actually had, I want to say 3 or 4 musicians on the trip. I'm the only one that works at it, but there were some really talented musicians, and we had fun. And you get to go, some of these side canyons have incredible acoustics because they're narrow and tall, like 100 feet tall and 30, 40 feet wide. And you can find a place to play where you could be walking up a side canyon, other people, we walked up a side canyon set up, and a couple of us were playing music, and another trip pulled in down at the beach, a quarter mile away, and they were walking up the canyon, and they could hear us long before they got to where we were.
What a great journey to be on this massive, beautiful Grand Canyon with a bunch of people and just life is good, you know.
It is. Again, I'm just a lucky, lucky guy and a lucky kid because my parents started this company, and in fact, the company I just went with was the company that purchased my family's company. Interestingly enough, we were 71 to 86, so 16 years, and they've had it from 87 onward. So they've had more than twice as long as we had it. But in my mind, I always say, oh, it's our company, but it's their company. And they're great. The people that bought it are wonderful people. We're friends. And my son works for them sometimes,
That is really great.
Full circle.
Also, it was nice to be with your son, that bond going, doing this.
Yeah.
I did a little fishing and with my dad, and that was really when you work hand in hand with your dad or your son or whatever, is really really cool. Let me see another photo here.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. That's from a few years ago. That was a river trip I was on. I was guiding on that trip, but there were a bunch of kayakers. You could see one of the kayaks strapped to the back of the raft, and so there's no one on my boat at the time, but I pull out the guitars. We're floating on a quiet stretch.
Man, you
can see that's a rather large river in the background.
I love that photo.
Thanks.
It's just.
I wish I could remember who took it. I'd give them credit, but I don't remember who took it.
Let's see what we got here.
Yeah. There's that one. Yeah, that was us getting ready. Yeah. More of that. That's at the put-in. That's at a place called Lee's Ferry, which is, if anyone's familiar with that area, that's right below Glen Canyon Dam, about 15 miles. And that's the last place you can access the Colorado River by road. And we put in there, and the river's flowing from left to right across the screen. And then we go downstream, we go under that cable you can see in the background. Photos of rapids for you. There are very large rapids in the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Back in the day, it was considered very, very high level, and it still is. If you're working a raft trip, I mean, the rafts, we didn't have any rafts turn over, but they do turn over on a fairly regular occasion. People are wearing all kinds of good safety gear, great life jackets and stuff. So injuries are not that common, although they do happen. But the rapids are big down there. It's one of the bigger rivers in the United States. It's not the biggest by any stretch, but it's one of the bigger whitewater rivers as far as size and volume of the river. So the rapids are big, and those 18-foot rafts can get stood on their end and flipped over end for end. So,
oh man, you got to really be on your toes.
Yeah, so you have to have some skill, especially to be a commercial guide down there. And again, I was just a lucky kid. I was 13, so my dad gave me a boat, had me follow along with the other guides, and they were gracious to me and let me follow. And so, I was lucky because I learned early, so I was fairly skilled by the time I was pretty young. And fortunately, I've done it enough to maintain a reasonable amount of skill level. But there are people, and I also do whitewater kayaking, which I teach occasionally, which is a different thing. It's one person in a little kayak, you're enclosed. But there are people that are just so incredibly talented. And the Grand Canyon is a special place because it's a 2+ week river trip in one of the wonders of the world. But there's amazing whitewater runs in any mountainous state where people are dropping water. I mean, people go over 100-foot waterfalls in kayaks now. Not so much rafts, but I mean, the sport has just gone places we never would have imagined. So the skill level has gotten.
I know a lot of people around that I've talked to, they go to that American River for that.
Yeah, and I teach kayaking up there occasionally. I go up there fairly often, and it's about a 4.5-hour drive from here. It's a fun stretch. Most people do that stretch in a day. There's several.
They've got different categories. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that.
Yeah, it's actually 1 through 6. 1 being basically not quite flat water, and 6 being pretty much your life is in your hands, and you have to be a complete expert. Class 5 is what's considered expert.
Yeah.
The Grand Canyon's kind of most of it's class 3, but big water class 3, which is different from small water class 3. and with some class 4, and I would say 4+ rapids in it. They're big rapids with consequences, with long swims if you get in the water. So you gotta, you gotta be careful, but it's fun. It's great. Oh, there you go.
Okay? What are we looking at?
So after I finished my Grand Canyon trip, I went up with some friends that I knew, a woman who is a river guide as well, way back in the old days when I was in high school. Nancy is a wonderful, Nancy Cassidy. She and her husband own Klutz Press, or they owned Klutz Press. If anybody remembers Juggling with Complete Klutz and all of that, you got a little book. And so they have a beautiful home. They live in the, Palo Alto area, but they have a beautiful home in Stanley, Idaho. And so I went there after the Grand Canyon trip. So this was mid-October, just a few weeks ago, and that's Redfish Lake. So if anyone knows where Sun Valley, Idaho is, that's up over the hill from Sun Valley going north over Galena Summit, and you drop into the headwaters of the main Salmon River, which is a beautiful and amazing river in its own right. It's another classic river trip, and this is the headwaters of the Salmon River in Idaho, and this lake is one of the headwater lakes. And we were just walking around, and I did a 6-day songwriting retreat with Nancy and 6 other people who are now really good friends, some lovely songwriters from all over, including people that worked in Nashville. And it snowed on us one night. And in fact, I don't think it got above 40 degrees the whole time we were there, but we were in a beautiful lodge that's been converted into a home that Nancy graciously lets us stay at. So.
It looks like a beautiful tranquility right there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was inspiring. We'd go out for walks and look at things like this, and then go back into our rooms and write songs, and then have a communal dinner, and do a round robin at night and sing songs. It was part of my this 3,000-mile trip we mentioned. I started. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
When you came back here, you must have had just a clear mind. I
felt like it, yeah. So I started in, you can see the snow on the log there. I started in here in Monterey, drove to Flagstaff, Arizona, where we launched our Grand Canyon trip. From Arizona, drove up through Utah to, this is essentially the center of Idaho, but it's way up in the Sawtooth Mountains. And then from Idaho, drove, when I returned on the route through Oregon, and then through very northern California. I sadly had to go to a memorial for a dear friend who's an old river person that I've known since high school. She passed away this summer, and we had a memorial in Chico, and that was the end of my trip. It was a celebration. So even though it was sad, I got to see some old people that were really dear and close to me, and we got to celebrate our friend Leah. And so it was both a sad and lovely fitting end to the trip. So yeah, it was a lovely time. And on that Grand Canyon trip with my son, we got to pour my dad's ashes into the river above the biggest rapid. So generations of Vladimirs.
Your dad,
Kyle Kovalick, my son.
Your dad got a kick out of that being.
Yeah, so it was pretty fun. My son
being a river man, yeah.
Yeah, so super fun.
That's the same photo.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't.
Here.
That's a little cabin that I was staying in next to the lodge. That's right after it snowed, and the mountains in the background are just the little foothills, but the Sawtooth Mountains are all around. If I could pan that photo around, it's one of the most stunning places I've ever been. And we used to have a river operation up in that area as well. So fun, but yeah, that cabin's just cute as a button. So I was in that little cabin, and
when you were doing that 16 days, how was the weather? Was it like?
We lucked out. Other than one day where we had some big thunderstorms and some pouring rain, essentially it was, I want to say, in the upper 70s and 80s, which in the Grand Canyon is about perfect, because down in the summertime, as only a part-timer these days, I try to avoid the summer down there because it's well over 100 every day. And I mean, it'll drop down to 85 degrees at the coolest part of the night.
Yeah,
that's awfully hot. The river's cool, so in fact it's typically cold because it comes out of the bottom or the middle of a Glen Canyon Dam. It's a Lake Powell. Although this year it's quite warm because the lake's so low that the top of the lake is close to the inlets for the power supply at the dam, and so the water's much warmer, than about 20 degrees warmer than normal. Normally it's 42 degrees coming out of the dam. This year it's about 62. But basically you have this cold water, so you can chill down anytime you want. 42 degrees is way colder than the ocean here. So
But
Yeah.
what you were saying earlier that, that it's a lot of work what you do. Because
It is. And again, I don't do it full time. My son does. I mean, full time for river guides is typically 6 months. And
Well, I mean, I could picture, you've got like, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but you got 24 people.
yeah.
Some of them are greenhorns, and you're responsible for them as like, grab this, grab that. So you're always on your toe. You got to be on your toes though.
Yeah, you have to, and we all look out for each other. All the boats are very good
Yeah.
at staying close to each other in the rapids. So if anyone does have an upset or someone accidentally falls in, we swarm around like mother ducklings to pick up the little duck. But you're cooking, you're leading people on hikes. You're pretty much on, and what people don't realize about the Grand Canyon, because a lot of people have been to the rim and look down, and there's a village up there and beautiful lodges, and it's a stunning view. But at the bottom of the canyon, because of the shape like this, even up until very recently, where they have these new text things called inReach, even with satellite phones, the satellites aren't necessarily where you are doesn't reach a satellite. So if something happens, let's say someone falls, most of the accidents happen off the river, and breaks a leg and needs attention, there's not going to be a helicopter there till the next day.
Oh yeah, wow.
Even though the helicopter could be 20 miles away as the crow flies, we can't communicate that. When I was starting down there, we didn't even have satellite phones.
Yeah.
And the radios don't work down there because there's nowhere to receive them. So we literally would flash airliners flying over with mirrors, and people still do that. And sometimes that works faster than the satellite phones. So it's kind of a funny, an enigma in a way, because it's this 200 and some mile stretch of river, but when you're down in it, and help is not right there. So you have to be completely self-sufficient. Every one of the river guides is at the very list. It's called a wilderness first responder, which is one step below EMT. And so all of us have to have that training to work down there. So
now, Kyle, can you bring a dog? Anybody have a dog on there?
No, you're not allowed to have dogs down there. And I mean, 100 years ago, when they were doing little trips down there, they didn't do very many trips 100 years ago, but I think a few dogs have made it down, but no, not.
That is really cool. Really.
With me?
I said, that's great. What else? Great story.
Oh, it was fun. I hope I hope it's interesting.
And if somebody wants to do it, I mean, like they want to get a hold of your son to do it, how do you get a hold of him?
Well, you can get a hold of me, and I'm easy to find. There's a website called Kyle K for Kovalick, KyleKmusic.com. And my phone number's on there, and email and all that. And I can hook you up with some of the companies. There are, I think, 12 companies down there that do raft trips, and and I have friends at a number of them, and I don't think you'll lose with any of them. You'll have an incredible time. But there are some that I think do better trips or power trips in those 18-foot boats versus there are some big motorized trips. But I'm happy to send you there. And my son doesn't book the trips, so he's working. So he's not the guy you would contact to do that. But I can tell you the company he works for, and you can request a trip with him, which would be great. Yeah. And I don't work often enough that they would pay attention to me.
That'd be good. Now, Kyle, getting back to the music, when's your next gigs? Can you tell?
Oh gosh, I should have pulled that up. I am playing in Santa Cruz on Saturday night at the Dream Inn, and that's a solo show, just me.
Oh wow, that's a great place.
Yeah, it's a great place in the Jack O'Neill Lounge, and it's wonderful. Thank you, Steve Vagnini, for booking that. I think a lot of you know Steve Vagnini as well.
They just had Big Brother in the holding company.
Yeah, I'm not quite that famous, but they do these balcony concerts where people rent rooms. I'm just in the lounge, but it's a great place, and the food is fantastic. In fact, it's a couple from Pacific Grove that makes food, and then. Richard and I at Two Rivers play at Folktale Winery out in Carmel Valley fairly regularly. We just played there on Saturday. I think our next gig there is, I want to say the 12th, which I think is a Friday, 12th of November. And my band Five Star plays every other Wednesday at Sly McFly's on Cannery Row.
Okay.
And this Sunday, I'm playing at a relatively new place called Blue Fox Cellars. That's, again, a solo gig. I'm playing from 1 to 3. And that's, if anyone, it's in the Carmel Valley Village, and it is
Yeah.
the old, oh gosh, Talbot. The Talbot. If anyone knows where the old Talbot
Oh
Taste
yeah.
Room is.
Also,
Yeah.
next door to the old Cowgirl.
Correct, which has moved down the street.
Cowgirl, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly the same. So you can pull into the parking lot where the old Cowgirl was, and Blue Fox Cellars, wonderful wine, really lovely people that own it, local
Nice,
people, it's a great fun thing. It's a fun afternoon. It's a really cool little venue. There's outdoors, indoors, couple outdoors places, but really, if anyone ever went to Cowgirl, it's the building next door, and they have that bocce ball courts. They have bocce ball courts. Yeah. So it's really fun. So that's Sunday from 1 to 3, Saturday night 6 to 9 at Dream Inn, and next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, the band will be playing. So Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday this next week coming up. Wednesday at 9, I think 8:30 to 11:30, and that's the band with all those wonderful folks I mentioned.
So yeah, that looks like a great.
Yeah, and then that Friday at Folktale with Richard again, and who's also the singer in Five Star. So yeah. This week's a little slow. My sister's visiting. I'm so happy to have her here. So we're having a lot of sister and a couple of old dear friends, and my sister's daughter, my only niece, and so we're having a lovely time. But next week, I'm back to it. 4 gigs next week. So
I'm gonna remind anybody that go to Slides and check out 5 Star, because these guys are great musicians. So see if you guys can make it out there and see these guys play and say hello.
We'd love it.
Say hello to dance. Yeah. So Kyle, I'm gonna let you go, but is there anything you want to say before we leave, or?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for, doing this thing, and you're such a community-oriented human being, and I didn't know you prior to moving back here, and our mutual good friends, dear friends, Chuck and Rosie Brewer, introduced me to you, and they've known you for years because they lived here. Coincidentally, they moved to Seattle, where I spent most of my adult life.
Yeah.
And they introduced us and told me these great stories about you, and in fact, you have given Chuck and I some gigs, so we're grateful for that. And I really want to say thank you to you, and this kind of thing, bringing our community together, be it around music or art, or just being pals, and recognizing what an incredibly beautiful place we live in so many ways. I mean, the physical beauty of this place. I mean, yesterday I was in Big Sur with my sister and her friends and her daughter, just reveling in the beauty of where we live, and the Monterey Peninsula has such a great community.
It is.
And even though it's changed a bit since I was a kid, I left in 75 and I came back in 2015, so 40 years. It's changed, and of course, prices are astronomical around here, but the people that do live here seem to have a really great sense of community, be it Pacific Grove, Pebble Beach, Carmel, Monterey, Seaside, Marina, Salinas, Big Sur community, Castroville and Morro. Anyway, just Moss Landing, excuse me.
A whole community. But
what a great community. And there are music venues in pretty much all of those places. And we have such a rich musical legacy. I mean, there's all these great places. I can't even name them all, but there's so many. There's never enough if you're a musician. But if you're out there and paying attention, you can find this stuff. And if you check in with cousin Johnny here, listeners, he keeps us on our game, and he also lets us know great places to eat. And again, Monterey, I mean, I have all these friends that live in big cities because I was involved in the music industry as a sales rep for a number of decades and running a big music store in Seattle. And, I have all these friends in New York and LA and San Francisco and Chicago. And they tell me about all the great restaurants. I'm like, hey, you got to come to my town. And I'm like, you come to my little community of 100,000, and I bet we can go toe to toe with you when it comes to food. I mean,
just look at all the great restaurants.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Pacific Grove.
PG. I mean, I'm walking
right there. Pacific Grove. There's
it's right here, everywhere.
Up, down, everywhere. But my job is to, everybody that has something special in this community, like yourself,
Oh, thanks.
And my job, well, is to bring it out and
Yeah,
let
I feel the
people
same way.
know. You got a great, musician here. You've got a nonprofit over here. You
Yeah,
got an author here. You got a
right.
poet over here. Let's bring everybody together. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and yeah, there's and
yeah,
so I mean, so many and art. We have so much art around here. We have beautiful art
Sand
galleries.
City,
We could
Sand
cut everything you
City.
can think of. It's
What
it,
about those murals in Sand City? It's
yeah,
incredible.
they're stunning. They're so beautiful. My son, his other job in
What a,
Seattle, he's a muralist, and so he comes down and he loves all that stuff. He does
I
that.
mean, I can't get over what an artist community that Sand City is. Just,
It's so great.
I
Yeah,
love it. The sky's the limit there
yeah.
too.
So I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to have met you, and you've just been so kind and embraced me in such a big way,
Well,
and all of us and all of the musicians. And like I said, I'm humbled to play with these people I get to play with and
yeah.
sit in
Well,
with, and so many of them are so amazing, and
it's
which is why I take lessons, because I'm trying to rise to their level. They're so amazing, and this community is full of that, and they're so welcoming. And so I'm trying to do my best to welcome people in this community and try and be an ambassador whenever I can for where we are. So
thank you.
thank
Thank
you for doing that.
Thank you so much for what you do and
Oh,
all the musicians that were mentioned
oh my God.
today on this show and
And there's so many more. And if I forgot you, please forgive
people
me.
that
I
we
didn't
didn't
mean to forget you.
mention,
There's so many
thank
great
you.
musicians around here and
But
great bands.
anyway, so Kyle, I'm going to let you go and
Thank you, my friend. Big
we will
hugs.
see you at one of your venues. And
Yes.
thank you so much.
And thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Kyle Kovalick, what a show. Thank you for what you do in the community. Thank you for that incredible story that you told us. You play a great guitar. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in. And I want to remind everybody that the shows are always on Buzzin' with Cousin Facebook page. Also, I have a channel called Buzzin' with Cousin Channel. So all the past shows are on there. Also, if you subscribe, you're going to get a notice when a show comes out. So, do me a favor and go subscribe to that channel. And once again, thank you everybody. Thank you, Kyle. And I'm gonna say goodbye, and we will see you next Tuesday. And don't forget, we've got some great music in this community, and go out and check them out. Bye.